So I was sitting here looking over some things, going over the history of mankind, and I began to see, some disturbing things as it pertains to how we define one another. How do we define race? How do we define ethnicity? And what is this man's inhumanity to man? Why are we divided? Why did the Civil War even start? Was it justified? And why is it, or how long will you all allow the Jewish people to put fear in you? How long are you going to allow any group of people to put fear in you because they're trying to tell you who they are, and once they establish who they are, whether it's true or not, they established it because it makes them feel better or good about themselves. And then when you tell them the truth, you get nervous and scared. And the same thing happened with the Apostle Paul in his writings to the Galatian church in chapter 1 and 2. Peter, too, was afraid of the Jews. He was a Jew. Barnabas, too, was fearful of the Jews. Why? Because Peter was eating with the Gentiles, and then somebody came along, and he got nervous and decided, I can't eat with y'all anymore. The scripture says because of fear. I want to talk about this Whoopi Goldberg situation as it pertains to the Nazis, the Holocaust, and her statement on The View, just to let y'all know I ain't falling for it. See you in 60.
It's the show that will get you thinking, and where the topics are hot. Feel free to comment whether we agree or not, 'cause he's got something to say. Sirwalterj Jones. Sirwalterj Jones. He's got something to say. Sirwalterj Jones. Sirwalterj Jones Show.
Come on in. The water's fine. Hello, everybody. Sirwalterj Jones Show. I'm here. It is the evening edition. Baby. How y'all was? Come on in. The water's fine. Yes, we are live. I do see your comments. I just will not be reading them unless I see something that jumps out of the page that I may need to address. I have a lot of notes that I did prepare for you. If you want to read along or you want to read them after the show, here is the website to go. You go to the Sirwalterj Jones Show .store. That is the website. The link is also in the description on Facebook and in the description below this video on YouTube. All right, you can go there for my notes. I will be reading all of it today and expounding on it. Okay. I was reading in Revelation chapter. Oh, by the way, it's 99 cents. Or however you want to give, but it helps support the channel. Just 99 cents. You paid $5, $6, $7, $8 for Starbucks today. Revelation chapter 2, I believe it is, says something very strange here. Okay, look at this. It's the message to the Smyrna church. Okay, it says here, and I know thy works and tribulation. That must be chicken right there. And tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Oh, that right there. Some people who are against Jews would use that as a defense. And the word Semite pops up. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Here, you see chapter 3 and 9, he seems to have repeated himself, would say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Lie. There are imposters, fakers, like some of you have come across, and maybe some of you are, fake Christians. Galatians chapter 2 bring up these fake Christians. All right, so who are these people, and why are we fighting over the comment that Whoopi Goldberg made? Because as I analyzed it, I've come to a conclusion that Whoopi Goldberg was not incorrect whatsoever. And she was not insensitive. She told them what she believed based off of her analogies and her race, her color as a black woman in America. Where did all this start? Man's inhumanity to man. The fight over race has a lot to do with ambiguity. That's really what it is. It's ambiguity. The doubtful and uncertainty of the meaning. Who are these people? What really are they? So you have to go to Wikipedia for the definition of race to see how even they struggle. And yes, her name, Brother Jason, is Carolyn Elaine Johnson. That's her birth name. Where did Goldberg come from? She wasn't born that way. All right. That had a lot to do with her being a performer, an entertainer, that became her stage name. All right. So when we go to race, here's what it says. A race is a categorization of humans. Pay close attention to how they specifically and strategically have to explain what race is. Categorization of humans based on shared physical or social qualities. It's the social where the issue is. Into groups generally viewed as distinct within a given society. Now, the term was first used to refer to speakers of all common language, and then to denote national affiliation. By the time we get to the 17th century, the term begins to refer to the physical, phenotypical traits. So when you look at slavery, you see the change. And when Whoopi Goldberg was on the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert, she explained why she said it. Modern science regards race as a social construct and an identity which is assigned based on rules made by society. You understand? And while partially based on physical similarities within groups, race does not have an inherent physical or biological meaning. We have constructed our own meanings. Even though there is a broad scientific agreement that essentialists and typological conceptions of race are untenable. That word means undefensible. Scientists around the world continue to conceptualize race in widely different ways. Now, while some researchers continue to use the concept of race to make distinctions about fuzzy sets of traits or observable differences in our behaviors, others in the scientific community suggest that the idea of race is inherently naive or simplistic. But others argue that among humans, race has no taxonomic significance because all living human beings belong to the same subspecies, Homo sapien sapien. You learned that in biology class. So, what Whoopi said on The View, hurt the Jewish people because her statement placed them into some melting pot, which takes the emphasis off of who they were as a distinct people or a distinct race. We all agree that the Jewish people were specifically targeted, but they were specifically targeted for something. But what were they targeted for by the Nazis? And why were they targeted? The answer to that question is not being taught properly in our schools and in our social gatherings. Why were they targeted? And the reason being behind why were they targeted is people looked at her statement based off of the Nazis more so based off of the Jews, because the Nazis wanted racial cleansing. But did the Nazis know what they wanted? So let's look at some definitions here. Racial prejudice is a word, a phrase that pops up. That is a hatred towards an ethnic group of people. Racial prejudice. The next word is xenophobia. We've been seeing that word pop up quite a bit during the Donald Trump administration. Since 2016, xenophobia was used a lot. Intense or irrational dislike or fear of people from other countries. Okay? Chauvinism is another word. That's an old term that we've been hearing when I was coming up. Bigotry is another word. A state of mind where a person strongly, irrationally, unfairly, or intolerantly dislikes other people or opinions that differ from their own. We look at Archie Bunker as a bigot. He disagreed not just with the Jeffersons because of their skin color. He disagreed with religious beliefs, national origins, gender. He was a chauvinist. Disabilities. When a young man came over to work on the house, he talked about that young man. All right, the social economical status and all these things. All right, casteism is another one. A class structure that is determined by birth. Loosely, it means that in some societies, if your parents are poor, you're going to be poor. Casteism. We see a lot of casteism throughout world history, especially even in the scriptures. All right, discriminatory measures are taken. All these things here play a big part in how German treated everybody around them who was not a so-called pure race, which there's no such thing living today. So let's talk about the difference between race and ethnicity. Race is usually associated with biology and is linked with the physical characteristics, such as your skin color and your hair texture. Black folks know all about that word race. But ethnicity is linked with cultural expressions and identification. Ethnicity. Both are social constructs used to categorize and characterize seemingly distinctive populations. They both are used against you. So let's talk about the Jewish people and try to find out, do the word Jewish refer to a race or does it refer to a religion? A race or a religion. It can be difficult to define what it means to be Jewish. And people may assume that being Jewish means that one is physical descendant of the ancient Jewish people. But there is more, much more to consider there. Being Jewish can be defined in terms of religion and race and culture and nationality. And any or more of the varied definitions may apply to a given individual, but all of them are not true of all Jews. How do we know? When you look in the scriptures, you pull up Romans chapter 9 and go to around verse 7. The NLT says being descendants of Abraham doesn't make them truly Abraham's children. If you're going to tie Jewish people to Abraham. And even though Abraham came from a Gentile, how did he become a Jew? People often ask that question. But those who were the seed of Abraham aren't considered a Jew. Everybody's not considered a Jew. For the scripture says, Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted, though Abraham had other children too. Not everyone physically descending from Israel actually belonged to Israel. That's what Paul wrote in the previous verse. He seemed to have meant something similar to what he wrote in Romans chapter 2 and 28. He said, no one is a Jew who is merely one outwardly. What? The Bible is trying to explain to you whether a Jew is a race, or is it an ethnicity, or is it a culture? Is it a religion? He says the spiritual aspect of our relationship with God is far more important than our ethnicity, our heritage, our biology. Now, Paul begins to give examples from Israel's history to clarify his point. To begin with, not all Abraham's offsprings were counted as the children of Abraham. Whoopi got something here. Some of them were not included in God's promises to Abraham's descendants. Both Abraham's son Ishmael, born before Isaac, Genesis chapter 16, and his sons with Keturah, born long after Isaac, Genesis chapter 25, were excluded from Israel. Excluded. Paul quotes Genesis 21 and 12, where God said to Abraham that it is through Isaac that his offspring will be named. So how could we get upset with that statement that she made? To speak of being Jewish religiously means that one followed the Torah and/or the Mishnah. There are many who do not follow the tenets of Judaism, but who consider themselves cultural Jews, since they observe certain festivals or traditions, albeit in a non-religious way. But there are also converts and proselytes to Judaism, and they too are considered Jewish, regardless of their background or ethnicity. Sammy Davis Jr., Elizabeth Taylor, Marilyn Monroe, Kate Capshaw, Tom Arnold, Mary Hart, Ike Turner, Jackie Wilson, Nell Carter from Give Me a Break, Connie Chung, and even Ivanka Trump. They all consider themselves Jews. Through what? Conversion. There is only one race, and that is the human race. So to speak of the Jewish race can be very problematic. Various courts in the United States have ruled that Jewish people classify as a race in order to extend their protections. You understand? Call them that to protect them under the anti-discrimination laws. It's like what homosexuals are doing today. They bringing in they call it civil unions, and they bring up the civil rights era of Martin Luther King. You see what's happening here? You see the rope-a-dope that's happening here? But when a Jew filling out a survey or an application on a census form, he's faced with a choice. What choice is that? Caucasian, American Indian, Hispanic, Asian, Black, or public islander. And he could be any of the above. But where is the check for a Jew race? Using the word Jewish to refer to a specific culture bypasses the religious and racial considerations. But Jewish culture can be elusive to pinpoint as well. The particulars of worship and practice are not common to all Jews. Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardic Jews, for example, practice some different customs, follow slightly different liturgies, and have different accents in their Hebrew pronunciations. So in the Bible, the Jews were called to be a specific nation, But it is important today to define Jewishness according to the nationality. For almost 2,000 years, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were a people without a country. Oh. And when modern Israel was established in 1948, there were a great many Jews who did not support it. So today, people living in Israel are called Israelis. They are not called Israelites. Where are the Israelites? They're all over the world. We don't know where they are, but they're all over the world. But you cannot call those people in Israel Israelites. Every time you watch the news, they say the Israelis. I wonder why. But there are many Israelis who are not Jewish at all. And by that same token, most of the Jews in the world are not Israeli citizens. Most Jews are not Israelite citizens. So, this rabbi suggests that the proper way to think of the Jewish people is not as a religion, nor a race, nor a culture, nor a nation, but as a family. This is a Jewish man saying this. Jews, according to this man, are united in that they are the extended spiritual and or physical family of Jacob. That's about it, y'all. The Bible is clear that God chose the children of Jacob for a specific purpose. Paul, who was himself a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin, wrote of his willingness to give up everything, if he could, for the sake of his fellow Jewish salvation. He said, I would give it up. I could wish that I myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my countrymen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertain the adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the law, the service of God, and the promises, of whom are the fathers, and from whom, according to the flesh, Christ came, who is over all the eternity, blessed God. Now, he said that in Romans chapter 9. And I read earlier, as he continued to talk about everybody born of Abraham are not Jews. So if I was Whoopi Goldberg, I would quit. I would quit because you're not going to tell me what I know to be fact. Bump The View, bump CBS. I would quit. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't be no apologize, but it would be more of a let me explain what I mean without reversing what I said. Here's the thing. You all changed some things in America. Y'all changed this. You confused us even more. You see, the problem didn't start in Germany. It seems to have started in the Bible, or at least our flawed interpretation of what the Bible says. Who exactly did they come from? The Jews. Seth? Shem? Abraham? Jacob? And when did Jews separate, the name Jew separate from the name Gentile? Seth was the son that God gave Adam and Eve because of the two boys. One boy killed the other boy, and the other boy was a mark for the rest of his life, so God gave them Seth. So Seth to Noah to Abraham, to the 12 tribes of Jacob, and then all of the kings, and then to the King of Kings, which is Jesus. All right, we can take that back to Seth, or can we? Most people take it back to Abraham. Abraham is the popular view, for God directly spoke to him about his descendants. But Abraham had other children, like I said. So all of his children were not Jews. Ishmael was not of the chosen line, and the grandson, Esau, was not of the chosen line. So the final view is that the separation of Jew and Gentile must have started with Jacob, whose name was changed to what? He wrestled with an angel, did he not? All night long. And he smote him in the side. And the angel called him a name. He said, "You're no more Jacob, but your name is Israel." Oh, now I get it. Biblically speaking, God chose the Jews to be priests and prophets and missionaries to the world. That's what they are. That's what they are. So originally, slavery was not based off of a man's race. It was based off of the man's class. The Jews themselves owned slaves in the scriptures. And the Mosaic law talks about how to treat the slave. Even in the New Testament, Paul talked about how to treat your slave. How do you know that we should be enslaving this person? By their outward appearance? It's not like how America treated slaves, instituted slavery, or continued in slavery. Because why? Skin color is misleading. You can't just do something and become black. Can y'all tell Rachel Dolezal to give me a call? You can't just do something and then you're now a black man or a black woman. But you could get circumcised or convert and now you're a Jew. Ain't that about nothing? Now, does that not speak more to their ethnicity than their so-called race? Does it? Now, if you agree with the statement I just made about black folks, then you might have missed something. Because I attended an outdoor Mexican festival in Chicago, in Humboldt Park, and ran into a man who was darker than me. So I was the only black man there out there in the park, so I wanted to talk to him and kind of pile up on him. I introduced myself to him, and he couldn't understand a word I was saying. You know why? Because he was Mexican. He was darker than me. Did the disciples of Jesus practice racial prejudice against the Gentiles, the Roman Empire? Why did the Jews hate the Samaritans? Why did Peter not want to minister to the Gentiles? Why did not he want to go to even speak to Cornelius? Why did Jonah did not want to evangelize Nineveh? Was this about race? How did the Samaritan woman recognize Jesus was a Jew? And how did the disciples recognize her as a Samaritan talking to Jesus? And why were the disciples upset that Jesus was talking to this woman who was a Samaritan? Was it the town where she was? Was it the clothes that she was wearing or Jesus was wearing? Was it the dialect? There are many white people who live in South Africa, and they are considered what? Africans. South Africans. Have you ever listened to how they talk? If you close your eyes and you don't know what color they were, you thought they might have been Ethiopian. A black Ethiopian. Most Jews don't live in Israel. And the ones there are called Zionists. And we don't even know who they are. Who are these people over there? And most are not even believers. So let's dig deeper into what Whoopi Goldberg said about the Nazis. If you dig deeper into the history of the Nazis, you will understand what her statement was, because somebody's lying. Yeah, the diaspora, socket. The Third Reich is what we always hearing about. The Third Reich, which means there must have been a First and a Second Reich. The Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. That's the name. What do we call China, y'all? We call it China for short. But what is the full name of China? And many of these nations out there, they have a full name. We just shorten it. We call where we live America. But it is the United States of America. So German Germany was the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. But Voltaire said, just like the Federal Reserve Bank, we have a Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve Bank is not federal, it's not even a reserve, and it's not even a bank. It's not federal because it's not the government. It's not a reserve because there's no money in there. And it's not a bank because you can't withdraw. So the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation was not holy, nor was it Roman, nor was it an empire. Yes, the People's Republic of China. So there were three Reichs. The first one was the German Empire in 1871. It went all the way to 1918. Then the Weimar Republic started in 1918, went all the way to, not all the way, just a few more years to 1933. And then the Third Reich was the Nazi Germany, 1933, up until the war ends in 1945. Now the word Reich translates as the realm or the territory or reach. That's what the Reich means. The term does not in itself have a monarchical connotation. All right. Now, every German during the Third Reich of Hitler had to carry a document describing their racial heritage. Now, here's where we get deeper into Whoopi's comment here, which is why people think that that she was attacking a race of people. She was giving y'all correct history. All Germans had to carry a document to describe their racial heritage, signed by their pastors. Now, this has a lot to do with what's going on today among white evangelicals. Signed by their pastors with their baptismal certificate, because baptism was a sign of equality, which is why some of you denominations, like the Apostolic Church and some of the other Protestant churches, feel that if you're not baptized, you're not part of this whole thing called the body of Christ. It's based off of equality, baptism. And many of you have borrowed from a lot of these regimes a dividing line between heroes and heretics. That's why you had to carry that document. And in Germany, a priest or a pastor was considered a civil servant. So they highly respected priests and pastors. The German Empire, the Roman or Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. It was all about church. And it was the reason why the United States became, the 13 colonies ran from that state church ran. So in the Constitution, they made sure that they put in there the First Amendment. We shall make no law. There is no state church. Separation of church and state. You understand? So what happened? They blamed the Jews for secularization. Hear it real close. This is where you're going to get the answer. They didn't look at the Jews as a race. And did Jews look like them? Yes. And the depiction of Jews with big nose, when you look at some of the satirical news papers and what have you back in the 1930s and 40s, they always had a Jew with a big old nose. And sometimes you see some of that writings up today in satire. They blame the Jews, though, for secularization and doubts about the truth of the gospel. That's what the attack. It was a social issue, not a racial issue. After World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, which ended that particular war, in 1933, Germany was looking for a new leader to solve their internal problem. They didn't have a problem with Jews. A new belief about blood and soil then sprung up. That became the race issue, blood and soil. Where did we hear about blood and soil? We heard it during the administration of Donald Trump. Nationalism, if you go back to Donald Trump's inauguration address, he spoke about nationalism, America only. He might as well have said blood and soil. And this is why that whole thing with was that South Carolina where they ran that young woman over and killed her with the car, and they had the tiki torch. The Jews will not replace us. The Jews will not replace us. Them. And they kept saying blood and soil. Oh, that goes back into history, y'all. That is the fabric of much of the white and white evangelical. That's the fabric of who they come from. It was rooted in that race, but Hitler borrowed from us, and we, or these people in America, borrowed from Hitler. So they looked for someone to blame. They looked for someone to blame. Yes, it was partly anti-Semitic. That word keeps popping up. Anti-Semitism. You say one small little thing, you are an anti-Semite. You say anything slightly negative about the Holocaust, you're an anti-Semite. That's how easy it is to shut you down, cancel culture. So it was partially anti-Semitic and race. But prior to that, early philosophers looked at this thing. And the earliest philosophers said that Germany was being polluted by ideas of a French Enlightenment, which was secular, democracy, and human rights. All that was rejected. And if the Jewish people had played along, there would not have been a Holocaust. That's my bold statement to y'all. There would not have been one. Why? Because it had a lot to do with the ideas. Instead, they felt they needed to return to nationalism, blood, and soil to recover their real identity. So they blamed the Jews for going against this. So what did the Nazis do? They courted the Protestant church, just like the slave owners courted the black preacher to trick on y'all. Man, history keeps repeating itself. The church is responsible for more deaths and more killings around the world than any other group that I know. The Inquisitions, the Crusades, the witch burnings, bombing, abortion clinics, you name it. Christians are responsible, so-called Christians. Apostates. They're just saying they're Christians, which makes our jobs hard. So the Nazis courted the church. They ran a campaign against sexual immorality. Go figure. The Christians then blamed the Jews for this. Is it making sense? The Christians blame the Jews. What you see happening in Germany against the Jews is what's happening in America. The gospel of the Third Reich is what it was called. The gospel of the Third Reich. They wanted a Jew-free Germany, which had everything to do with the Jewish faith and their tradition. They wanted to eradicate Judaism and not eradicate necessarily the race. They were after Judaism. They were after the ethnicity. Whoopi was right. This was man's inhumanity to man, no matter how they're going to accomplish it. So what they do, they fabricated to say, okay, we're going to do some race cleansing, and we're going to attack these people here. So y'all looked at it as a race. But everybody back then knew it wasn't a race thing, it was an ethnicity thing. America made it a race thing. They started to sterilize the Jews and borrowed the science of eugenics from who? America. America created eugenics, not the Germans. They came over here to study the way we was sterilizing. They tried to sterilize my mom. 500,000 were sterilized. For what? For being blind, epilepsy, for being homosexuals, for being mentally depressed. for alcoholism, for deafness, sexual promiscuity, physical deformities. They just was sterilized. Where'd they get that from? Right here. And that's why certain words popped up. Doofus and imbecile and some of the words we use to talk about other people, that come from eugenics. Those words were made up back then. So what did Hitler do? He wrote Mein Kampf. They put him in jail. And he had a Martin Luther King Birmingham jail moment where he wrote Mein Kampf, 1925. It's an autobiography. It's a manifesto. Hitler was inspired to write these books based off of Charles Darwin's book on natural selection. I'm trying to tell y'all, if you search the history, then you'll see it. What happened between the Nazis and the Jews was not so much a civil war as it was a civil misconduct against their own kind. They were killing their own people. The Germans were killing their own people. And I base this argument off of the etymology of the word race. Man's inhumanity to man is correct. When you look at the big picture, this inhumanity had to be achieved by choosing a group that was in the way. You understand? That's what this was. And I honestly believe that the Jews were collateral damage. They were in the way. Could the Nazis been trying to destroy a people in whom they too thought was a race? The Ku Klux Klan is a racist organization. They hate black people. Why? Because of the color of our skin. But guess who else do they hate? They hate the Jews. And guess who else do they hate? They hate the Catholics. Well, why do you hate the Catholics? So somebody said that the Jews don't see themselves as white. Oh, really? But that's only when it's convenient. Many reports during the civil rights marches of the 1950s and 60s that many Jewish men and women were among those who were spitting on those who were marching, spitting on those who were at the lunch counters, spitting and giving racial slurs against black people. And many of those were Jewish people who looked very white. My father worked for a Jewish family in the 1970s on the west side of Chicago. And based off of the many conversations that I literally heard, you'd have thought that they were white because they joined forces with the white folks when they needed the backing of whites. Because why? They were white. Margaret Sanger, y'all bring it up. Planned Parenthood was a word, a phrase used to soften the blow on eugenics. They couldn't use eugenics because of how it tied in. I did the eugenics show, y'all. You can go to Facebook, go to YouTube and type in eugenics, or Rogers will put the show in there. I talked about all of that. So, as I close this down, let's talk about Black history. Since this is Black History Month at the time that we are doing this show, it's Black History Month. Racism is a system on which the black man have no horse in that race. You understand? Why? Based off of the meaning of racist. Racialism. I believe African Americans can be prejudiced. Oh, yes, I'm prejudiced towards some things. Everybody's prejudiced towards something. They can be bigots as well. And they can involve themselves in discriminatory practices. You best believe we can. However, they cannot be a racist. White folks hear that and say, lie. In order to be something, you have to be part of something. And that something is power. Something that the black man has never had in America, and the white institutions have fortified that power. It fortified it. We couldn't go to the white church. We couldn't go to the white schools. The churches built universities and schools for white people only. and they consider themselves children of God. It's an institution. White evangelicalism is a racist institution. That's where they were birthed. And they'll tell you, no, we're not. But you go to the average church where there's mostly listen to the music. Close your eyes and walk into a church, and you'll know if there's 99% white folks in here or if there's 99% black folks in there. Or you'll know, just close your eyes, listen to the sermon, and listen to the music. Trying to tell y'all. Unfortunately, many black people attribute the word racism to the hateful behavior that they demonstrate towards us by white folks, and have tried to take it on as their own. And in doing so, they have misconstrued the word. They have misconstrued the word for behavior. When black folks answer yes to the question as to whether they can be racist, he is trying to parrot a behavior that they see in a racist white and attribute it to the black man without considering why he, the white man, has that attitude. The fact of the matter is that he has this attitude because he owns and oversees the system. We don't have and never have had that ownership of the system. That's the same thing that Christians also do when we go back into the Old Testament and try to read Israel's mail and attribute it to us in this latter day as Christians. We go to the Old Testament and bring a lot of that stuff into our New Testament church. But what we are appropriators. We're doing the same thing. Do we love the fact that the Hebrews, were slaves? Absolutely not. Despite their treatment, they too would never be looked at as racist. In spite of their closeted feelings of hatred towards their oppressors from Pharaoh and all these other people, because they did not have the power, the system, or laws behind them in the place to support it. It was to the contrary. The laws kept them bound in Egypt. Pharaoh of Egypt enslaved them for 400 years. Why? Was it because of their race? Did Pharaoh enslave the Egyptians for their race? Well, he said it out of his own mouth. He said, it is because there were too many of them. There was a Pharaoh that did not know Joseph, and the Jews were growing. So as I reflect back on Adolf Hitler, history repeats the tale of him walking out on Jesse Owens after he wins the gold medal at the Berlin Olympics in 1936. Y'all remember reading about that? None of y'all were around. They said Hitler walked out, wouldn't shake his hand. And actually, that's not true. It's a fairy tale, not true. Jesse Owens recounts that both of them actually waved at each other in passing. Hitler gave him a little German salute and smiled, and Jesse waved at him. So why am I bringing that up? Because of the hypocrisy of America. He then went on to say that it wasn't Hitler who snubbed him. Guess who snubbed Jesse Owens? It was his own president of the United States. Franklin Delano Roosevelt is the one who snubbed Jesse, not Hitler. 18 African-American athletes competed that year, 1936. But none of them were invited to the White House after their wins, brought in the gold medals. None of them were invited to the White House. Only the white athletes were invited. Jesse Owens was the most popular of all athletes from America. Out of all of them. And never ever did a telegram, a homing pigeon, or any message, a phone call, a congratulatory, anything, nothing came from the White House. Not a peep. Hitler waved. America said, nigger. Many years later, we had to get a black president by the name of Barack Hussein Obama, and then he decided to go back and find the families of the 18 men, and he brought them to the White House to congratulate them. No white president would do it. Why? Why? So Oprah, I keep calling her Oprah. So Whoopi, you might want to resign. You might want to resign. Why? You ain't gonna win this one. No matter how much you try to explain it away and apologize, which you don't owe, you might want to, because every time they see you, they gonna see you as an anti-Semite. And on The View, they're gonna bring that up again. Yeah, you might want to. You got enough money. You don't need The View. Sit down. I was never a fan of The View anyway. Never was. When it's too liberal, and then when they had the conservative on there, she talked too. It was a spit in my face, because sometimes the talk of race was just too racist coming out of the conservatives they had on there, and the ones on the left were too liberal for me. So I just decided not to watch that show at all. And when I'm talking to men, the men, I don't know if I want to say, I can't tell you what the men are saying in the circles when they talk about The View, but it's obviously what they be saying about The View. So honestly, none of it is just mess. It's just messology. You get caught up in that mess. But she got in trouble for her view on a show called The View. It's ridiculous. Resign, Whoopi. Resign. Before they cancel you. They gave you 2 weeks. A lot of time when they suspend somebody for a couple of weeks, that means they're thinking about how they're going to fire you. That's usually the case. Now, somebody said she's a black woman, so she said the wrong thing because she's black, and so they had to do this whole thing. Not necessarily, because many white folks got canceled for saying certain views. They got canceled, all right? So it's not so much because she was black, but her blackness does have a lot to have a different type of cancel. See, you can cancel white folks, but you can really cancel black folks, because it becomes what that person says, and then it becomes what color that person is. I'm trying to tell you what I know. So if you can see the thumbs down on YouTube, they got rid of the thumbs down. They gave you the dislike button to make you feel good about yourself on YouTube. All right, this dislike button, they put that there so that you can feel good about yourself. And only we content creators can see how many people disliked it. I don't even go over there because it makes me laugh. All right, so you can't see it. All right, but if you could, you will see a lot of the thumbs down. And much of it will be coming from Jewish people and those who are sympathizers of them and what have you. So I get it. This is going to be a very hated show. I get it. You know, I don't give two dead flies. You understand it, right? When the people, I don't care who you are, do or say something really silly, I'm going to tell you about yourself. The Bible says that we are supposed to pray for Israel. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I pray for them all the time. You understand? But if Israel do or say something stupid, then I'm going to rebuke them. The problem with white evangelicals, especially through Kufi, through, what's his name, who started that organization, the Christians United for Israel, not Jack Van Impe, but John Hagee, okay? White evangelicals are obsessed with Israel, obsessed with them to an unhealthy level of obsession, to the point where Israel can do anything and white evangelicals will not ever rebuke them. They can't do it. They can't do it. So when God says pray for them, I pray for them, but he did not tell me to lick their behinds when they did do something ridiculous. So we still must rebuke. Why? Because the apostles rebuked. And he said, do the work of evangelists. Rebuke, reprove. Only the Gentiles, though. No, don't do that to the Jews. Don't rebuke them, but only rebuke the Gentiles. That's the problem I have with you all. So everybody is fair game to the Sirwalterj Jones show. I ain't licking your butts. Not doing it. Understand? So Whoopi, take a long vacation. Go to Cancun for about 6 years until things kind of all right. But I thought I'd say that. Now, if y'all want the notes, again, the notes are right here. The Sirwalterj Jones Show. Go to .selfie.store. You can go there for the notes, and it will. Everything that I said tonight are itemized in there. You can go there and 99 cents or whatever, and you could support the channel. Okay. Other than that, I'm done with Whoopi and I'm done with this subject. But because this is Black History Month, I will continue my rants on Black history as it pertains to what's going on here in America. And if something should pop off, or what have you, I'm going to talk about it. I didn't want to sing tonight, no piano. I wanted to go hardcore, let y'all know. Whoopi was correct. Stop being afraid. Talking to all y'all. Stop being little punks, little weak backs with yellow going down the stripes going down your back. And stop hiding in the corner. That girl was right. The Nazis lied. They falsified. This was a social problem. That's what this was. This was a social issue. This was a issue of y'all don't want to do what we do. You don't want to worship like we worship. You don't want to do this, do that. Okay, now then we're gonna have to choose you because you're the only other people here in this territory who there's a lot of y'all who ain't doing what we asked everybody else to do. And then they made it about race. That's a red herring. That's a dog whistle. Bless it to you, Percy. You understand? So be bold, y'all. Go back on your Facebook walls. Erase everything you said that, oh, yeah, no, Whoopi was wrong. No, go back, erase your posts, and tell the truth. She was right. Jews is a melting pot of everybody until they feel like they're attacked and all of a sudden they become a race. Outside of this, all of a sudden they're not a race. Well, are y'all bipolar? How is it that you're a race today, but when something happens tomorrow, you're not a race? You're an individual. That's why, again, this whole race word is a problem. Because, again, we're all a part of one man, Adam, the human race. That's it. And Germans and Jews and Asians, they're all my brothers and sisters. And we were grafted into the Jewish family. We're grafted, that wild tree branch, grafted in. So there's no respect of persons. God looked at male and female, black and white, Jew and Gentile as one people. Sons of God. You understand? Sons of God. Now I see you atheists over here. I like when the atheists come over. All right, God, I thank you for your presence. I thank you for your blood. I thank you for the people who are here, whether they believe or whether they do not. It doesn't matter to me. I just hope that one day that we all will come into the unity and understand what's going on here. I can't change my message because they disagree with me. I just can't. So I'm praying, oh God, that the day will come when you will cause them to turn on their thinking, their thought process, and win them to you. Now, I've done what all I can do. The apostles and the prophets laid that foundation. I'm not building no more foundations. Not going back. Absolutely not. I'm going to go forth. And you told me I'm going to give you 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with everything. And number 2, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Love yourself. Who is my neighbor? Everybody I come in contact with is my neighbor. Who's my brother? Everybody I come in contact with. We all are part of one race. One race. Everybody I come in contact with got red blood going through their veins, so I must treat them like you said in Genesis chapter 9. You said a life for a life. Who gave me the right to take another man's life? You said that he is made in your image. So when I look at my brother, I see me. But when my brother is wrong, you gave me the right to rebuke him. So that sometimes Satan can have his way with him and we can bring him back into the fold. So God, I thank you for this truth that came forth tonight. Somebody's going to get it. Others, it may take them a while, but I pray they come into the fold. We love you. We give your name the praise in Jesus' name. Thank God. Amen. All right, y'all. I'm going to get all of the hate mail when I wake up in the morning. And a lot of the funny comments that will be on the YouTube, going to be a lot of funny comments, okay? A lot of crazy, funny comments, or a lot of hatred and all kind of stuff. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to get some popcorn and read it all and just laugh and say, you know, the way of a transgressor is hard. Take care of yourselves and one another. Go ahead and share the channel. Subscribe to the channels. About 400 of y'all came today. Y'all don't want to come to Bible study for some reason, but you like to come to, and anyway, go ahead and hit the bell notifications. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and subscribe share the show and do all the stuff that y'all do. Okay? All right? I love y'all. Take care of yourselves and one another. We'll see y'all soon in the sweet by and by.
Bye. Enjoy yourself. Bye. Goodbye. 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 Bye. Well, goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
Fellas, does it seem like you can't get a good woman? Ladies, wonder why you can't keep a man? Then read The 4 Women That Men Desire, Volume 1, by Sirwalterj to figure out how to break the cycle. Go to Amazon.com to get your copy today.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Sirwalterj Show. Goodbye.